Hey guys, my name's Alex Smithers. Going to be talking to you today about Iran, specifically about the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action and whether or not the United States should or should not engage in diplomacy. First of all, I think that the United States 100% definitely should engage in diplomacy with Iran, whether or not it's rejoining the deal or restructuring a new deal. And to understand why, I think that it's important to know a little history about Iran's nuclear program, which started back in 1950, actually with the help of the United States through the Atoms for Peace program. This went on for about 20 years. Iran got pretty advanced in their nuclear technology, which caused them to reach a global scale, and they signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty in 1970, which is basically agreeing to not use your nuclear weapons for harmful means. And this seemed to go on pretty well until the Iranian Revolution took place in 1979, and that is when the Shah was removed, who was backed by the United States, who was very pro-West, and anti-West powers took over, and ties with the United States were basically completely cut from then on. And that's really where the start of bad blood between Iran and the U.S. happened, and where that started. In 1981, 2 years later, Iran decided to restart their nuclear program, obviously without coordination with the United States, so they were doing their own thing at that time. And then up to the early 2000s is where alarm bells kind of started to ring throughout the UN, and Iran was kind of suspected of using their nuclear program for harmful means. And then this caused actually the United Nations Security Council in 2006 to call Iran to stop enrichment of the uranium. Um, Things finally ended up actually getting taking a turn for the better in 2013 when Hassan Roufi was elected president. Big part of his platform was uh, getting better ties, better relations with the United States, getting sanctions lifted from his country because for the past almost decade, throughout the Bush and the Obama years, the United States and other countries had been imposing sanctions on Iran to try to halt their nuclear program because that was really their best means of doing it was sanctions. And that there's an estimate in 2012 to 2016 from sanctions, it cost Iran $160 billion in oil revenue, just oil revenue alone. So these sanctions obviously were just destroying the country. So finally, in 2015, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action was agreed upon by the P5+1, which is the United States, United Kingdom, France, China, Russia, and then Germany. Um, and they agreed on these negotiations with Iran, which basically completely minimized their nuclear program. A few of the limitations set on Iran was a third of their centrifuges, which is used to process uranium and plutonium. A third of them would only be allowed to be used. So they went down from about 19,000 to 6,000. They weren't allowed to use any new centrifuges. They could only use the old models, so nothing updated. Their stockpile of low enriched uranium was previously 7,000 kilograms, and it was brought down to 300 kilograms. And then also their stockpile of medium enriched uranium was completely gotten rid of. So um, this deal seemed to be working. Sanctions were lifted. The country seemed to be doing better economically. But in May of 2018, the United States decided to unilaterally withdraw from the deal and reimpose sanctions on Iran. Um, and a lot of people say that the Trump administration reasoning behind this is he wants to essentially just wipe all of the Obama administration's policies clean, and he thinks that none of the deals that we have made with Iran are really working in favor of the United States, and he thinks that it's better for us to pull out and just reimpose sanctions and basically run the country into the ground, which I think is one of the worst ways to go about it. I think that we need to re-enter negotiations. We don't have to necessarily do the exact same deal because we already pulled out of it, but we need to re-enter some new kind of deal. I think that the way we go about this now, realistically, is either President Trump comes up with some kind of negotiation where he can basically brand it as something he came up with, because we all know that that's how he likes to go about things. He likes to be the head decision maker and take credit for a lot of stuff. So it would have to be some kind of deal on his terms where he would basically be the head chief decision maker. Um, or we wait until 2020 and see if a Democratic presidential candidate is elected, because pretty much all of them have talked about re-entering negotiations with Iran. So it would be pretty easy with them. Also, depending on the balance of Congress and the House of Representatives and everything. But those are really the two main ways I see about re-entering negotiations, and I just think it's extremely, extremely important, because we either enter negotiations with them and we are able to keep tabs on this country that has possibilities for creating weapons of mass destruction. We have a deal with them where we have some kind of communication, there's some kind of back and forth, instead of just being another country like North Korea where they're completely off the grid. We know hardly anything about them because of our bad relations with them. So I think that uh, it's important to remember that Iran is still, for the most part, abiding by everything. um, they are having trouble, obviously, because of sanctions that are being placed on them, but it's just really important that we need to remember that maintaining peace in the Middle East is huge. And the United States as a country has already created too many problems in that region of the world. We don't need to go in and take another country in the Middle East and basically just crumble it to the ground. So we need to do whatever we can to help the people there, help the people in the United States, and most importantly, we don't want any kind of conflict.